Okay, it's a lovely sunny day, and today should actually be a cold, wet and damp day, because this is the New Year's Day meet at Brooklands, which was postponed earlier this year and moved to Easter, so it has now become the Easter gathering, and we have such a wide range of classic, vintage and modern classics. Just take a look around and it's a brilliant day. Well, we're in the middle of the finishing straight now, with the sun still shining on us, and we've got a lot of Triumphs, as we can see behind me here. And looks like the TR Register have got a really big stand here today. And we're going to just chat to Steve, who's the owner of this lovely Le Mans TRS. So we're going to find a bit about that car and a bit about the TR Register. Hi, Steve.
Hi. Good to meet you.
Can you tell us what this club is all about here today?
This is the TR Register. This is the London group. We've got probably our biggest display we've had, probably maybe ever, but it goes all the way. It's about 28 cars all the way along the back here. All types of TRs. So we're just really happy to all get together, and we all arrived en masse, and then all lined up. And they decided they wanted my car on prime display here next to the gazebo.
This is probably most of the Triumph TRs in the southeast area, I should think, today.
Quite a lot, yeah. This is the London group. There's also a Thames Valley group nearby as well. So there's various different groups, but this is mostly the London group here. Yeah.
And this lovely vehicle here is yours, a Le Mans TRS. I don't know much about these, so please tell us.
Absolutely. So this was one of 4 cars built specifically for the 24 Hours of Le Mans. It was Michelotti's, one of Michelotti's first designs. He just joined Triumph as the designer, Italian designer, and he was in the process of designing the TR4, and it's actually got a TR3 chassis, which actually raced in '59 as a TR3S, but then in 1960 they decided they wanted to re-enter Le Mans, and they made this car, 4 of these cars, specifically for the race. It's got a very unique engine. It's called the Sabrina engine. In fact, there's only 2 working examples left in the world. It's a twin cam. It's a magnesium aluminium cast engine. There's about a 150 brake horsepower. It was designed specifically for the race, and then the idea was they were thinking about mass producing it, which they never did. There were 3 cars in the race. This is one of the cars that raced in 1960 and in 1961. It finished both races. So in 1960, it finished 19th overall. But in 1961, it actually finished 11th. In fact, all 3 cars finished the race that year, and they're the only complete team of 1961. In fact, it was the first and second highest placed British cars that year as well. And so this car, they finished 11th, part of the team, so they won the team prize that year. So it actually has won a trophy as a part of the team, of the 3 cars. And then straight after Le Mans, they were shipped off to America, and they did some racing in America. This one eventually ended up in a barn in Virginia for about 40 years, and then was taken to Germany to be restored. And I purchased it 3 years ago from the German restorer, who owns one of the other TRs. He owns the reserve car that didn't race in 61, it did race in 60. And so the other 2 cars, the other 2 trophy-winning cars, are both in America. This is the only one in the UK. It's an interesting car to drive because it's really designed specifically for Le Mans. So it has a very long gearing. All the power is very high up the rev band. It doesn't have a speedometer. You have to drive off the revs because you don't need one in the race.
Let's have a look inside there.
You don't need one in the race.
Right.
It doesn't even have a fuel gauge.
Oh, right. I can see, yeah.
But it's actually, allegedly, the switches on the dashboard, they're actually off a World War II fighter plane. The legend being that they were going head-to-head with Porsche in the same class group that year, and they decided to Battle of Britain switches on the car, which I thought was quite interesting. It's very, very original. So it's got the dashboard's all original, the steering wheels from the race. It's the body it's a fiberglass body actually, which means it's very original because it survived obviously all these years. It's a 61-year-old car now. It's got a 100-litre fuel tank, which was part of the standard for that. Yeah, they have very tight regulations for Le Mans, so it's got a 100-litre fuel tank. It's even got a boot because that was again regulation. And I think 61 was the last year where you could have convertible cars at Le Mans. This is the last era of that type of car. After I think 62 onwards, you had to have a hard top on Le Mans race cars.
Yeah.
So it's a fun thing to drive. So I've been to many shows. I've had it at the NEC Classic Car Show. It's been done a few hill climbs as well. But it's
you've not campaigned it in an actual race though,
no,
a historic race.
For me, it's too original. I think that's the problem. It's
a bit risky.
It's a bit risky. I mean, I'd have to put a different engine in it. So there's only 2 of those engines left now in the world. And so
a little bit rare, really.
It's very rare, yeah. So I'm sure maybe I'm not going to race it. Maybe one day some future owner will want to race it. Maybe put a TR4 engine in it or something. But it's for me, it's too original. I mean, even the body's original as well, as I say. So it's very precious. Yeah, but it's good fun. I like taking it to shows like this. It's
lovely. I mean, it draws a lot of attention anyway, doesn't it? I think it's fantastic.
It's definitely fun to drive. It's not great in traffic, as you might imagine, for
I can imagine.
60s race car, but it's on the open road. It's beautiful, very beautiful.
I can imagine going around the M25 in this.
Actually, I was on
when there's no queue.
I was on the M25 this morning. Actually, it cruises. I mean, on the motorway, it cruises really nicely because of the long gearing. It did 140 down the Mulsanne Straight in period. So it's for a 2-litre engine. That was of the 60s era. That's pretty impressive actually. So it does no problem cruising at motorway speeds. It's just not great on hills. Hill starts not designed for hill starts really with the long gearing and the high power band engine. Yeah,
that's great. Thank you very much for showing us around your car this morning, Steve.
Thanks a lot.
Lovely. Okay, here's another car. It's attracting quite a bit of interest. Not quite as shiny as some of them here, as you can see. I actually have no idea what this car is, so we're going to speak to the owner, and the owner is Don. Hi, Don.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Hello there. And what is it?
It's a Marlin kit car.
Right.
They kind of started around early 80s, and from the very outset they were very popular as trials cars. So that is to say off-road sections and navigable road sections and so forth, endurance trials or day trials. The original concept was that they were to look like the early Alphas, and they were based on various different cars, and this one's based on a Morris Marina.
Okay, so it's got Morris Marina underpinning, suspension.
Yeah, it's got the 1800 engine out of the Morris Marina. This has got a 1300 gearbox because it gives you slightly lower ratios.
Yeah.
And importantly, on the trials car, the absolute gold mark, if you can get it, is the Morris Marina van back axle, because it was a lower ratio and it was a far stronger unit. And importantly, out of the whole Marina range, it had a different stud pattern, so you can then instantly fit the MG 14-inch wheels.
Right. Okay.
So it gives you more ground clearance. And this one's had numerous modifications, and again on the axle, for instance, it's had roller bearings fitted onto the planet gears, so that if you spin up, it doesn't lock onto the shaft and damage your diff and bits and pieces.
And you campaign this yourself, I guess.
Oh yeah. We're not actually away. This weekend is the Exeter trial with the MCC, which we were going to do, but we thought we'd come here instead, having missed the one at New Year when it didn't happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, this is New Year's Day.
It's lovely,
Moved
isn't
to
it?
the Easter and the sunshine.
Oh yes, no, we're very lucky with the weather. It's fantastic.
What more could you want, really? Got some novel things in here. I like the snooker balls.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's pool balls. Yeah, it's a lot of the trialling is all about stop starting on hills and bits and pieces. So a hydraulic handbrake is a must. It's also got a conventional handbrake to keep it road legal. In the standard kit car, the gear changes underneath the dash, which is a pain in the bottom to change. So I fitted a remote linkage. And the lever that looks very clever actually is just to get reverse gear. It's very Heath Robinson, but when you pull that, it literally operates the cable, pulls the stub up so you can actually get reverse. Because normally you'd have to lift the gear lever up, and of course when it's under there it's impossible.
Yeah, you can't get to it. Particularly not if you're halfway up a hill somewhere.
No, precisely. And obviously timing instruments and bits and pieces.
Right.
It's got anti-tramp bars fitted, uprated rear brakes, etc. So all sorts of little bits and pieces. It's lifted substantially on the original lines.
And you've obviously done quite a lot of work on this yourself.
I bought it as a barn find about 6 years ago, and it wasn't a runner. The bloke hadn't finished it. Luckily enough, he had registered it, which is very useful, but he hadn't finished it. So I took it, and just rewired it, did everything to it. and modified it up to trial spec. You have to stay within certain specifications.
Yeah,
You can't make the rear body too big, you can't have the rear wheels too far out and so forth, just to keep it all fair.
So it is extended a fair bit out the back with your wheels, and this is a toolbox, is it, in here? Or?
Yeah, it's just a handy, otherwise you've got so limited
Right,
storage.
put that in there.
So it's you can carry all your tools and bits and pieces, and of course it's also the weight in the right place for the
Right,
trialing.
so you're putting it over the back axle, really.
I've got a protective rear pan, which is in steel, and I've got a protective front pan, which is in dural aluminium, because you don't want weight on the front, but you do want weight on the back.
So, I mean, what's this then?
High lift jack.
This is for when you get stuck.
Well, yeah, I mean, changing tyres and wheels, but I quite like it because I've got a shackle system, so I can I've got 4 points, toe points, but I can shackle it onto there. So when you're rushing at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're knackered and it can't slip off because it's on with the shackle. So it can't all go horribly wrong.
Ah, fantastic. I bet you have some great fun in this.
Oh, yeah, yeah. When we're out in January, weren't we? Yeah,
so do you have a full trophy cabinet?
No.
No.
The breakdowns are very regular. They're called endurance trials for a reason, and I think it's the endurance of a marriage as much as anything.
You come along as well, do you?
He's my navigator.
Yes,
my significantly better half.
Fantastic.
You can tell because he put heated seats in for me.
Yeah, it has got heated seats. There was a concession to be made.
Are you joking?
No.
Heated seats.
I can't believe you put heated seats in that.
Well, it's really tricky to get the seats for these things because they're so narrow. There's such a limited range of seats. And this one company, made in Britain, this one company offered heated seats, and it's only 60 quid a seat extra. So I thought, right, yep, we'll have that.
So if you're navigating in this, then it must be pretty noisy. You have to shout a lot.
Yes, yeah, it's much better now. We've done some mods to it, but yes, very noisy.
I can imagine. You don't have an intercom system or anything?
No, just shouting to each other.
Just shouting?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's got a proper quiet exhaust on it now.
Oh, is it? Right.
Well, after sort of 250 miles, it
gets
just,
a bit...
too much. It's lovely on an hour spin out like you'd have on the Caterham 7 or something, but when you're starting at say 2 in the morning and finishing at 3 the following morning, etc., it just gets a bit too much. Yeah.
I know what you mean. Well, it's great. It's lovely to see this sort of vehicle here at Brooklands today, amongst all the shiny classic cars.
It's a fantastic.
We get one that isn't.
Yeah, Minis next to Jags, next to Alphas, it's just fantastic, isn't it? Lovely.
Yeah, it's a lovely day with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Smashing.